Hey y'all, welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Truth. It's your girl Naya Angel with my co-host, Mr. PAT and E-Man.
What
How y'all
up?
doing, fellas?
I'm
What up?
doing
What
good.
up?
How's everyone doing?
I'm
Oh
doing
man,
good. I'm
good,
doing good.
good.
I'm ready.
Yes.
Always ready.
So we definitely have some bangers this week. I think there was a lot that has happened over these last few weeks since we did our last few sessions, and man, we got some interesting stuff going on. So let's go ahead and jump right in. The first subject of the day is the Tampa police officer, Mr. Delvin White, who was recently fired for saying the word nigga. So I am going to go ahead and shoot this over to our man PAT to start us off. And the official question is, was his firing warranted?
All right. I say no. No, the firing was not warranted. Delvin White, the cop, he was on a personal phone call. That was the first time he was caught saying nigga. The second time he said it was during the phone call when he said it, but he also said every day that I go to work and not one kid gets shot or stabbed, that means I've done my job. And that's a lot of responsibility. You don't have all that responsibility. Well, some will say you have more responsibility. You manage a multi-million-dollar property, or some ghetto nigga that gets shot or stabbed. I don't know. But to their mama, they worth $1 million. This is what he said. The third time Delvin says nigga is when he was arresting someone for trespassing. He said, "You going to jail now, nigga." So what I will say is, obviously, as a police officer, he should have maintained his professionalism. Not saying nigga is one of those ways to do that. The word, as we all know, is a controversial word. We already know the history and how white people used it as an offensive term towards black people. We black people eventually took the word and made it our own and started using it as slang. Now, I'm not here to discuss the right, the wrong, or the indifferent of using the word. What we all know is that the word has become a term of endearment amongst us, amongst black people. We took the ER out of it and put an A on it instead. People like to say, well, if black people can use it so freely, why can't everyone else? What I would say is that word coming out of a white person's mouth is never a term of endearment and won't be seen as one. Their history with the word is well cemented and well documented. The word is just not for them. It's not for them at all. End of story. Now, should black people say it towards each other? I would say most likely not. For me, the jury is still out on that one. I'm sure we can come up with a better word to use towards one another. I say all this to say that the way Delvin White used the word and the way a white law enforcement officer would use it are two totally different things. I would say
Mhm.
that yes, there should be some disciplinary action, but to fire him, no, I wouldn't have fired him. I don't think
Mhm.
he needed to be fired. I mean, because you have instances where white officers have been caught saying the N-word and other racist things, and they got suspended. They didn't
Mhm.
get fired, they got suspended.
Mhm.
Um, for example, there was a white cop down in South Carolina who was caught saying the N-word repeatedly, and
Mhm.
he got suspended. Now,
Right.
his excuse was that someone called him that word. He pointed at a black man who allegedly called him that word, and then
Mhm.
went on to say he can say it to me, but I can't say it to him. I won't go any further into that because obviously a Google search can, help everybody out. But overall, I think he's full of shit. Because even if Black Dude called him the N-word or some other derogatory term, he was still supposed to maintain his professionalism and be the bigger person and not respond back in that way.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have to call him the N-word at all. He could have called the black man something else. This officer chose to use the N-word, and then when he was caught, he made a dumb excuse for why he used it. Also, there was a white cop in Montgomery County, shout out to Moco, here in Maryland, was caught, Moco, was caught on camera saying the N-word. Now, the report said it happened during an encounter with 4 African-American men. And guess what the punishment was? The punishment was desk duty. Desk fucking duty. I mean, we could even look at the incident in Georgia back in July of 2016, where a white officer was caught on a dash cam saying, "We only kill black people." Now, he didn't get fired because he retired before any real disciplinary action could take place. We already know the countless times of white police officers murdering unarmed black people and basically getting paid leave. I mean, we could keep on going with this whole thing, but what I'm gonna say is if these white police officers aren't being fired for their misconduct along racial lines, then this black police officer shouldn't have been fired at all. I don't care what anyone says, but a black officer, really a black person saying the N-word, it's not the same as a white officer or a white person saying the N-word. The context will always be different. I'm not saying that saying the word in any instance is right, because obviously this is a word that has a negative stigma, but there are differences and distinctions that need to be taken into account. So that's pretty much my take. My overall take is that he shouldn't have been fired. Yes, there could have been some disciplinary action. No, it didn't need to go as far as him being fired.
Gotcha, sir. All right, Emmett, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and state my opinion here. I agree with you to an extent. So, do I believe that he should have been fired? No. Especially if there is no record of him ever being warned before, if he's done it before. Now, I get that there are degrees to which you can fire someone for offenses, right? Like you don't have to warn someone to not punch someone else when you're in the workplace. If they punch someone else, that's a fireable offense immediately. But my issue with this particular incident is that as a police officer, black or not, there's a certain standard that's expected. Black, white, Spanish, Chinese, it doesn't matter. They should all be held to the same accord, which is you should be professional as possible because your responsibility is to the people, regardless of the people's skin color, race, creed, or etc. The entire point of the police community is that they are supposed to protect and serve everyone. And they're supposed to do that with a certain level of professionalism and respect. Regardless of how I feel about the word nigga, he was not being as professional as he should have been at that time. Now, do I think that warranted being fired? No, I think that was the extreme. Do I feel like discipline was necessary? Absolutely. And bruh, it's like you didn't do it one time, you did it multiple times. You had to know that that's inappropriate, regardless of your reasons for doing it. I get it. You were in the moment, you were talking to, and I'm speaking on the specific instance where he was arresting someone. You were talking to a fellow black person. That may be the way you typically would conduct yourself outside of your profession. I get it. You know, how I am when I'm on this podcast, how I am amongst family and friends and etc. varies to a certain extent as to how I am when I'm responsible for being the department head at my job. And so you have to recognize that. And I feel like he neglected to recognize his inappropriate behavior. So I say, no, I don't believe the firing was warranted, but at the same time, I don't believe it was egregious, and I understand why it happened. As far as the word nigga itself, and I'm basically touching on this because I agree with your points from that perspective as well, Pat. You know, in my opinion, it's not something that I could see myself using as frequently as others. And I say that because I'm not going to say I've never used it. Of course I have, but I haven't in a very long time. And the reason for that is my opinion on just the use of the word has changed drastically. I get that we as a Black community have reclaimed the word. We have, it's not even the exact same word that's being uttered, right? There's a difference between the hard R and the nigga ending in A, right? But at the same time, it's another one of those words that has such a loose and convoluted meaning in our community that I don't feel like everyone is on the same page about the use. It's again being used when it is appropriate for that individual's narrative. And if that individual's narrative is truly to reclaim it because white people used it in a derogatory way against us and etc., okay. But I've more commonly heard it just used as a general greeting. And for me, you know, similar to the term Black man, because I don't even identify as Black. I don't identify, and let me clarify that because I know people are going to be like, what? Black is actually not a color. It's not a race. It is a term opposite of white. If you look it up in the dictionary, it has negative undertones and connotations. And so for that reason, I think my view is probably going to be considered a little drastic compared to others. But anyway, I said all of that to say that to me is besides the point. Generally, it's considered derogatory for his profession. So for his profession, right? So in other words, with the exception of like rappers, where it's not considered derogatory, or any other position where it's not considered derogatory, he violated a rule that is associated to his responsibilities as a police officer. So yeah, I'll wrap it up with saying, was him being fired warranted? Did it need to go that far? In my opinion, no. But do I understand why it happened? Absolutely. So E-Man, what say you, sir?
So, those are really good responses. And I'm not gonna, I wouldn't say change anything, but I'm gonna slightly add on to it. He shouldn't have gotten fired. All right. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I think it's childish. And the reason why I'm gonna say it's childish because when you look and like PAT was stating, you know, he stated 3 incidents where police officers who were white, which I'm gonna go back to the etymology of the word white, but in those 3 incidents, those officers just got paid leave or they got demoted, you know. But in this man's environment, which he is stating himself as, a Black man and whatnot, that term is used, so commonly within him. So when he calls another Black boy or man the N-word, it is common because this is a word that we cultivated based upon 2 other words that was cultivated by, I like to use the word white, but more in the sense of European people who, look down upon us. And when you look at the word white, based upon its origin, it means valiant, it means beautiful, it means it's of pure, you know, that's the best way to describe it. And just how Naya Angel also said that, you know, towards the color black, you know, it has a very negative connotation, almost as being called as pale and colorless, almost as an albino. Like if you've seen albino people, right? Those are the people who had a fair tan skin, but they are, you know, in this case, I'll use the word black. But this is the reason why, you know, we need to, you know, eliminate the word, you know, altogether. You know? Because it seemed like they were proving a point to fire this man rather than just firing this man because he was unprofessional, you know? Because we just listened, the PAT described 3 different incidents that was unprofessional by white police officers. And it was all the sense of being demoted, you know? And these are the things that does not bother me in society, is that we got to stop using words in the wrong context. Because PAT stated that an officer stated, you know, about, you know, it's good to kill black people and whatnot. You know, I don't identify myself as black because that word is very negative, because it's not even a race, a nationality, you know, it's just a color.
Right.
Just like how white's the color.
Right.
That's why I choose what I say clearly and precise, you know. So him getting fired is just basically childish. He shouldn't have gotten fired, you know. You know, if it was so long in the sense if it was a conversation and, you know, and there was some type of demotion behind it, that's fine. That's cool.
Yeah, I agree.
You know?
Like a demotion.
You know, but for a man to lose his job for a word that he's commonly used to saying, because it's been said around in his environment, you know, and that's the thing, you know, many people just don't get, you know, we all come from different environments based upon how we were, you know, I would say grown up or, you know, been around with, you know, but I feel that many of those officers who are white, because they feel like they can't say that word, this is like this whole thing of like, you know, I got you now. Since I can't say it, now you can't say it. And what does that look like? 2 children going back and forth at the playground. And this is where I feel like this is that situation that's going on right now. You know, I
that
hope
was an interesting point, Eman.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm hoping that this officer goes sue the city of Tampa, not just to get his job back, but to also, you know, do not let no one disrespect me for a very silly, you know, reason. And I'm just going to end it from there.
Okay. Yeah, that was actually a very interesting point that you mentioned, Eman, about, you know, was this more so about the fact that white officers are not allowed to say it, and so that was more so the motive behind the firing, especially since, you know, as Pat mentioned previously, that there have been incidences where white officers have said it, and all that has happened is that they were demoted. That's a very interesting point that you bring up there. Something to think about.
I appreciate it.
All right. Interesting stuff, fellas.